What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and let's start off with a health update on the recently returned Kenny Omega. Backstage update on Kenny Omega's health after Dynamite return. Kenny Omega finally made his much anticipated AEW return during this week's episode of Dynamite after staying out of action for 9 months. He teamed up with the Young Bucks to compete in a first round trios title tournament match. The former AEW champion, however, wrestled in a compression shirt instead of his usual in-ring attire. He also appeared to be in pain throughout the bout. This led to speculations about his health, and many wondered if Kenny Omega has been brought back prematurely. The AEW star only further fueled these speculations with a tweet after his return match, where he talked about being a burden to the Young Bucks. Quote, "The pieces aren't all there yet, but I refuse to burden the Bucks with my limitations. We have a real chance at this. I'll be even stronger in round 2. I'll surpass where I was at. I'll surpass everyone." Dave Meltzer of F4W Online provided some updates on the cleaner's health recently. He confirmed that Omega hasn't been brought back before he was supposed to. Per Meltzer, the whole thing where Kenny seemed to be in pain was a work. It was part of a long-term storyline that will see the former champion eventually transform into the competitor fans expect him to be. The team of Omega and the Bucks have advanced to the semi-finals of the Trios title tournament after their victory on Dynamite. They will now face the winners of the match between United Empire and Death Triangle. Kenny Omega, yes, obviously returned this past week on Dynamite, and I spoke about this in the video that I did when it was just really reacting to what we had seen on Dynamite, reacting to his return and to his in-ring return. And obviously there was a lot of discussion and a lot of talk on social media and AEW fans, pro wrestling fans, when they saw how Kenny Omega looked and how he was moving in that match. They asked, well, what is really the situation with his health? Is he okay? We know that prior to stepping away and prior to going to have all of those surgeries, he was really banged up, really banged up. Multiple injuries. He had a knee injury, shoulder injury, hernia, vertigo. I mean, all of the above. The fact that he was able to have, in my opinion, the best AEW World Championship reign, to have all of these fantastic matches, to have these fantastic feuds across multiple companies, it must be said as well. This wasn't just AEW specific. He was also the Impact World Champion. He was also the AAA Mega Champion. He was doing all of that with these plethora of injuries. The fact he was able to do that still, to me, is absolutely mind-boggling and unbelievably impressive. But we knew that he was really beat up, and we had also heard that the rehabilitation that he had been undergoing the last 9 months or so wasn't completely perfect either. We had heard that too, that again he'd had, I remember it was in March, I think it was around March time, that he'd only had one surgery and he still needed a couple more. And of course, he went back out on the road to do some of his AEW EVP duties, and he had to step off the road very quickly because he felt that it was impeding his rehabilitation process and he wasn't ready to get back on the road, and that was just a couple of months ago. So everyone was quite curious to what Kenny Omega was going to look like. Physically, was he going to look the same? Was he going to be moving the same in the ring? Were we going to see a better version of Kenny Omega, or were we going to see a worse version of Kenny Omega? Because sometimes when you get surgery, that can prevent you doing a lot of things that you want to do or you used to be able to do in the ring. And the key fact in all of this is that there was a report by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, and it said that Kenny Omega purposely had kept out of the public eye. Specifically, he hadn't let a lot of people see him. He hadn't made any real public appearances, any interviews that he was really doing. They were telephone interviews. There would be certain sort of streams that you would only be able to see a certain part of him. He was keeping himself out the public eye, and there's a very important reason why he was doing that, because he wanted that level of ambiguity. He wanted people to go, well, we just haven't seen him. Nobody's seen him. In this day and age of social media, where even when someone's injured, you see them all the time. You see how they're physically looking. You see them training. You see them doing their rehab. Nobody had heard from that. And it's amazing what your mind and your imagination can do in the absence of an image. In the absence of an image, in the absence of not being able to see stuff, sometimes your mind does create crazy things. And I think that's what people had done when it came to Kenny Omega. People's mind thought, this guy, he might be really badly hurt still. He might be really injured. So he was playing that up, and when he came out on Dynamite and he was in that compression shirt and he was in that brace, it led you to worry, man, this is looking Stone Cold Steve Austin territory. Remember Steve Austin? He didn't used to wrestle in, knee braces and all this kind of stuff, and he became the bionic redneck pretty much of a guy that was being held together by duct tape and blue tack at times, it felt like. And it felt like, again, watching Omega, you worried, you went, oh man, compression top because of the hernia, the brace because of his shoulder. Maybe this guy is really on what could already be his last run with all of these injuries that he's coming back from. But I speculated at the time, and this isn't me sitting here going, I was right, rah, 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 because I hate point scoring. It's just ridiculous. But I speculated at the time that I felt that you always have to be cautious of everything you see when you watch a pro wrestling show, especially ring attire when it's blatant, and that's what it felt like. This was really blatant. This was, if he just had worn a compression shirt, I'd have gone, well, hernias, they can be very atypical. They can be very, even when you get them fixed, you're not sure how it's going to work out. Some people do have hernias fixed, but then they have to have certain precautions for the rest of their career, because once you get hernias once, you can get them again just as bad. So I was thinking that's feasible. It was the brace. It was the brace that kind of gave it away for me. I went, a knee brace is one thing, but a shoulder brace, that just seems very blatant. It seemed very on purpose. Look at my shoulder. My shoulder's really, really bad. And I thought to myself, okay. And then I watched the match, and there was the spot in the match where Kenny Omega was sitting on the guardrail, and then there's the tope suicida, and it just wipes out Omega. Absolutely wipes him out. And I thought, if Kenny Omega, there was any doubts that he was injured, or if there was any concerns that he was coming back a little early and we had to be careful, he would have not done that spot, because that spot was dangerous. That spot was very, very dangerous, especially for a guy that would have a bad shoulder or had possibly was still recovering from hernia surgery or knee surgery. It would have been a bad move. So I speculated at the time. I think this is part of the storyline. I think the storyline here is, as the report mentions, that he's going to be trying to get back to what he was before, and there's going to be some element of doubt of, can he get back to what he was before? They've done this storyline before with Kenny Omega, not so much with injury, but from transitioning from Japan to the United States. Remember when Kenny Omega was first signed by AEW in 2019, he lost a ton of big matches, and this was meant to be Kenny Omega, the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, the best bout machine, guys having 6-star matches all the time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. This was meant to be the guy. He was going to be fantastic, and he came to America, signed with AEW, and he lost big matches over and over again. Lost to Chris Jericho, lost to Pac, lost to Jon Moxley, and they were even turning it into a storyline, weren't they? They were saying, man, are we ever going to see the Kenny Omega that was in Japan? Is he ever going to get to that point? And it was all building to that eventual heel turn, which eventually won him the AEW World Championship. And again, from a booking perspective, it's quite genius by Tony Khan, because they went from a guy that, again, you had doubts about to becoming, again, in my opinion, the best AEW World Champion that we've seen. And I think that's credit to the booking and credit to Kenny Omega in that one. So they're doing a similar storyline here. Instead of the transition from Japan to America, it's, can he come back and be better than he was before? You would think it's a given that the Bucks and Omega win the Trios Championships. I think they do. But I think the hope and plan for the future clearly is to do the Elite versus the Undisputed Era. I don't know if the Undisputed Era cost them the championships at All Out, or the Elite win it and then they get confronted by the Undisputed Elite. The issue is with that is that all three members are injured. You've got Adam Cole, concussion, torn labrum. Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are still dealing with injuries as well. So the timeline on that, I'm not sure when they can or when they will be able to do that. But I think that's the plan. So the positive here is that Omega's back. He is healthy. He is ready. And he hasn't been rushed back. The precautions he's wearing are just for show. He is ready to go, and he will only get better. So that's fantastic. That's exciting news. So you don't have to worry too much, but you still get into it. That's pro wrestling, right? You want to be taking on that emotional journey, and that's exactly what Kenny Omega and AEW has done. If you were worried about Kenny Omega in that match, they got you. And that's the point. You're meant to be emotionally invested. You're meant to be concerned about the babyface. You're meant to be worried about the babyface. And they did just that. So congratulations to Kenny Omega for that. But let me know your thoughts on Kenny Omega's health updates, his return to AEW, his plans for the future in the comment section. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. And I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.